residents to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across the world from me is the doctor himself. He's not here. He's, I think they're doing Japan Disney right now, or that's what they were doing yesterday. No, I think they're doing it for a few days. I got a very cute video sent to me of Steve getting to do the like Harry Potter, because I think they went to Universal too, doing the like Ollivander's wand shop, like getting to like her wand gets to find her, but it was like the guy was going back and forth between the Japanese version of what he was saying and then he was repeating it in English. It was very cute. But that's not what we're here to talk about this week. I am again alone. I think there might be one more episode without the doctor. I think so. And I apologize for this being late, but I've got other shit going on, so fuck you. I am spending most of my week working on a bunch of like data stuff for work, and I'm living, honestly, my best life. But I wanted to do an episode with a book that I had and read a book because I haven't read a comic in a while. And I realized that all of my books are still at my my girlfriend's parents' house, but I do have like a small selection. I do have a chunk of them at my office, but when I decided to do this, I was at home, and then I have even a smaller collection here, like literally like a handful of books in my house. So I walked into the office and grabbed the first book I saw, which was DC Comics, Detective Comics, Faces of Death, which I don't even know. Maybe Reed got that for me. I truly don't even know where it came from. It was probably a part of the huge purchase collecting that I did. But this is a New 52. This is part of the New 52 relaunch. But before we talk about it, I got to let you know, if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you. So, New 52 relaunch, which was in 2011, for those who don't know. This was an attempt on like resetting the Detective Comics universe a bit. I read a little bit about this before, and there's the book that I actually have is like a Batman Legends like reprint of this volume. So it's not like just a regular first sort of trade that came out of the New 52 series. This is like a reprint hardcover. And I think it's like volume 4 of this Legends of Batman. So it did end up as like a relatively like big story, as at least including this Legends of Batman reprint. I wonder what all the other stories are. I think the next one is like maybe Court of Owls or something. But it's interesting because this was Tony S. Daniels, sort of like, and like his real time working at Batman. And I think this is like one of his big stories for Detective Comics. Now, while Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo were working on the actual like Batman run, which was more of like a psychological horror, like that's where we got, that's where Court of Owls came from. And Tony was working on Detective Comics, which was supposed to be more of like this visceral, like horror thriller, which I don't know if I necessarily, like I think the Batman at that time felt more like something I would consider for Detective Comics and vice versa. Like I always think of Batman as more of like the action series and Detective Comics to be more of like the like heady sort of ethereal run. But that's not what happened with Tony. So Tony had previously worked as an artist on Batman with Grant Morrison. But by the time the New 52 launched, Daniel was basically given full creative control as both writer and the artist at the time, which, I mean, I don't know how much writing he's done outside of DC or within DC, but like it definitely it's definitely not a super well-written book in my opinion. But he definitely leaned heavily into the gritty crime storytelling. But I mean, we are again... This is 2011. Like, I don't know why we are still at this point where we are like, you know, people need a grittier version, a darker version. Like, I really hope after Dark Knight's Metal, we like find a way to just like pause that. I find that it's interesting because as like a zeitgeisty societal thing, it's always fun to see how society like reacts to like things that are going on culturally. So I do wonder the insanity that's going on right now, if we're going to see like a lightening of things, or if we're going to get even darker because people are doing that. Like, I know that during like Cold War and stuff, we got a lot of like sci-fi stuff and things like that. But I do wonder if this is going to either like, we're going to get a bunch of like political bullshit, or if this is just going to force us to like lighten up our books just because we need a break. Be really curious to see. But this book that we're talking about today, if you've read the title of this episode, we're talking about The Faces of Death. And that name really brings to mind, I think, a thing that most people think of when they think of this story, if they think of this story, is going to be Joker's face getting cut off. Which, when this book came out, I think it's always been a bit of a mixed bag for people's review, thoughts on this. I know that I knew this story just based on the face cutting thing, and I think when I put it out to the listeners for questions, we got a lot of like eye rolls, as this is a pretty mid book, I think. And I read it, and it definitely left a lot to the imagination. I think partly is just like where I'm at right now. The last thing that I want is to sit with a fucking like a bit of, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything unique. And I think that's the problem, is it definitely is pulling from a lot of like the early 2000s sort of like shock horror films and stuff that came out. Your Hostels, your Saws, your stuff like that. But it's just like not where I'm at right now when it comes to, like, I like horror. I actually love horror. But this, I think it feels really schlocky and really like it is attempting to just like be the thing that everything else in horror is at the time. And I think I struggle to find something that is inherent. Like, I'm really struggling to find like an actual, like a message that this story is trying to tell, more than just like shock and awe. It feels like a really disjointed book. But let's sort of talk through the actual, like the story of this book a little bit. So basically, the story starts with like Batman. This is supposed to be the New 52, so this is like the reset, right? I think this is supposed to be like Batman. I mean, as we all know, the New 52 wasn't done very gracefully, and as there was a bunch of canon stuff that they didn't want to remove that have happened to Batman. So as much as it is a reboot, I think they like this is maybe like 5 years in or something. It's supposed to still be the roots of like Batman starting it and becoming Batman, but it still feels like we are deep into Batman canon, even in what is ostensibly one of the first stories. Like, Joker's already at a point where he's taking his face off. Like, that feels like a deep Batman story, which it is, but theoretically, at least kayfabe wise, this technically should not already be happening. Like, that feels like a late villain hero sort of story to happen. But the beginning of this story talks a lot about how Batman's been trying to get the Joker for a long time, but he like there's a line he says like the worst psychos. It's like there is no consistency with the way that he murders people, and so that's the hardest way to find. That's the hardest type to find. But there's been a lot of like a repeating murder, and he's just like immediately chalking it up to the Joker. Now, the ironic thing is that the Joker is tied into that story, into those actions, but he's not the one murdering people. And we see the Joker coming into this dark like apartment, I think it is. It's kind of hard to tell what is happening half the time in this story. And he meets with a guy with a face on his face. He's a Two-Face, but not Two-Face. He's they've got like a young girl trapped there, and this guy the Joker comes in, and this guy's like, "Oh, the Joker, you're fucking dope. Oh, dude, you gonna murder me? Because that's cool. Because like I love you. Like I'm so into you. But like, what's up?" And Joker stabs this guy, and Batman eventually shows up, and Joker basically allows himself to be captured after like a bit of a battle. Which, I mean, I have huge issues with this, and I'll talk about it later. But like, I think a big problem with Daniel here for me is that they're taking this very action approach to a story that like shouldn't really be that action packed. Like, I get it as Batman and stuff, but this is Detective Comics. Like, shouldn't this be the opportunity to tell a detective-y story for like a serial killer and like a guy losing his face? Like, this is so much chalked up to like missing identity stuff. Like there's so much in there for like a really cool noir story that we are just like fully not getting in this. And he's trying to treat it like it's an action-packed Batman story. And it just doesn't make sense for the story. Like whether or not that's what they intended to do with Detective Comics in this reboot, it does not feel like a like the art that should be with this. And I get that's what Tony Daniel does, but like, yeah, I just don't really like it. But the Joker allows himself to be captured and taken to Arkham Asylum. And that's where we meet. Obviously, this is like it's so hard. I guess this is technically the first time in Arkham. And they're talking about how like this is the one place where killers like this can go. And in the intro to this story too, they talk about how like apparently the Joker is being seen by the community as maybe a victim, which I don't really get. It's a really disconnect. Like I can really, but this story really represents a lot of, I think, what I and a lot of other people hate about the New 52. But the Joker allows himself to be captured and he meets the Doll Maker, which is, I mean, that's, if nothing else, this story gives us the Doll Maker, which I think is an interesting character. He's a surgeon who like sculpts people by removing and rearranging their flesh. So he and his followers storm the asylum and they abduct Joker. And in this process, they cut Joker's face off and just leave the face behind. Now, this is the thing that like I didn't get until reading about this afterwards. But I thought they had like changed his face. Like I thought they like face-offed him. Like I thought he was becoming somebody else. But they just cut off his face and leave it there. And the investigation leads Batman basically through Gotham and the underbellies and stuff like that, finding all of the doll maker's work, all of these like stitched up people, a guy who's like supposed to be Gordon, but it doesn't end up being Gordon. Along the way, Batman also crosses paths with the Penguin, who's trying to like take over the crime world. Commissioner Gordon, who's I think a really poor portrayal of Commissioner Gordon. And we get in classic like early GCPD though, which is like dealing with corruption. I hate this version of Gordon though, because it feels like it's a Gordon that like is willing to work with Batman because it will get stuff done, but he is a completely like disillusioned commissioner. And I always like the version of Commissioner Gordon that's like, I'll go with Batman because I believe that we can do something here and we can like the law can work. Not this version of him where it's like, I'm going to work with you because like I have got no other choice, but like I don't believe in your like that we can save Gotham. That sort of comes up in this too. But yeah, we see all these like monstrosities that are stitched up. And then Gordon himself ends up being abducted and turned and nearly turned into one of the Dollmaker's creations. Batman arrives. We have this wild fight. And he saves Gordon, but the Dollmaker ends up escaping. And the Joker's face it gets locked away at GCPD as like evidence. And this sort of like all lays the ground for death of the family. And that's really what we're heading into for this. Now, like, I really didn't like this story. I think I get why people have a problem with it. I think that the writing is super clunky and feels like someone's attempting to write a superhero book. Bruce is saying like very like these are what superhero things say, and I'm like, part of me could see that as like an intentional thing, but like I always perceive Batman as the character and Bruce as the sort of like mask for him, and I find that he's really, the clunky writing is really more him as like Batman. They also have Bruce dating this reporter in here. This book's also super horny for whatever reason. This book is super horny. Like, people are fucking flirting with everybody. There's a lot of like sexual tension between every character in this. Like, and I don't know if that just comes with like horror, but it feels super horny. But yeah, that gets us into the questions for this week. We only got a few of them, but let's see if I can answer these without any expertise. So we're going to the Facebook. So Christopher Alex Schuler asks, would you consider the faceless Joker one of the most iconic Joker moments? I mean, the fact that I knew this going into it, it probably speaks to some volume of the fact that it's a fairly well-known story. At least that iconography of like the face hanging and stuff like that. Like, I've definitely seen that in places before. I think at the time people were super divided on it. I mean, that's the thing with things being iconic, right? Which is like, technically anything, if it's memorable, is iconic. It doesn't mean that it's like good. It just means it's memorable, technically, right? I don't think that people, like the overall story, people are like lauding over it like it's this like great tome of Batman, though it did end up in this volume reprint that I picked up. But I think it largely is, one, it's connected to, because it's connected to New 52. I think because it's connected to Death of the Family. I think all of that places, like, it does have like an important role. And I mean, it is ironic that it really is just connected to Joker. It's the Dollmaker is introduced, and that's I think an interesting piece and an interesting character. But like, I don't know how often any of the other events in this story really are that important. And I think, yeah, I think it is an iconic moment. Would I say it's one of the most iconic moments? No, I don't. I think that it is an important maybe moment, or it is an impactful moment in some ways. I don't even know if it is that impactful. I think that like largely it doesn't affect anything else. I think the only real effect that it has is like when he returns. But like I don't think that it was like this master plan that like was really well done. It wasn't the death of any major character. Like I truly don't. It felt like it's a move to just move him away to introduce him for something else. Like and for me, I think it's iconic in the fact that it's memorable, but I don't think it's one of the most iconic, and I definitely don't think that it was impactful in any sort of major way. All right, let's go to the next question. From Instagram. Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them. Yeah. So, from Mystery64, suppose you get to totally remake your face like the Dollmaker. All right. Whose body parts are you using? Dibs on John Cena's chin. Is John Cena a hero now? I think John Cena was like, people hated him, and now they like him, at least in like WWE. All right. What do I want? I mean, if I'm going to remake my face, I mean, if we're talking about like things that I am like sensitive about, I'd love to give myself a bit more of a chin. Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe a smaller head. That would be good. But otherwise, I'm good with the pieces and parts where they are. But if we're just gonna like make myself the most, like, take all of the best parts or the most interesting parts from other people, maybe like David Bowie eyes, like the chromia. What is it called? With the one pupil dilated and giving that the other one sort of like just regular, whatever that is. That's cool. I think that's interesting. Ooh, Amelia Clark's eyebrows, like that expressive and thick. Those are good. Those are some elite eyebrows. Um, oh, Mads Mikkelsen's nose. Yeah, fuck yeah. That sharp, like crooked, but like villainous nose. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fuck yeah. Let's do that. I got a little tiny nose. That would be nice. Give me some big fucking Angelina Jolie lips. Uh, yeah. Henry Cavill's jaw. You can have Cena's. I'll take Henry Cavill's. Uh, give me some fucking. I'm just gonna make myself look like a freak. Give me like the Tilda Swinton's cheeks, like those cheekbones or whatever. And yeah, Patrick Stewart's forehead. Let's do that. Give me some elf ears. I'll get some like Orlando Bloom elf ears. And I don't know. Everything else is just like Paul Rudd because he doesn't age. All right. Let's leave Instagram and head on over to the doc scored. Oh, fuck. Dock my score tonight. I don't want to dock that scored till you dock on the scored. There you go. From Butt Fart Butt, who asks, what was this a good story to reboot Detective Comics? I mean, look, I think that like largely this did like it's not good or well like thought of as like something like the Court of Owls for Batman, but I think for largely what they were trying to do, it maybe it introduced an arc. It like ultimately it set the stage for like a darker horror version of Batman story in this like New 52 era, and that's interesting. But like, yeah, I think so. Here are some things that worked well. Like, if they wanted to, if ultimately not for me and for I think most people, but the like horror thriller approach thing probably works for some people. I typically don't like that, and I find it's a little hard to follow in this, but I think it ultimately set a tone, and I think they, whether I resonated with it or not, it did work for this. So I think if you wanted that sort of darker horror tone as compared to what like the psychological stuff they were doing in Batman, then yeah, like that worked for it. I think the decision to have Joker's face cut off is definitely like a strong move, and immediately like it made headlines at the time and kept people like interested in what was going on. And I think I do think that the story stuff with the Penguin and GCPD like is an important piece to like start back off start up Detective Comics if you're going to if the New 52 has to happen, right? But I think there was way more style than substance in this. I think Joker's face removal was, I think, it was more shock than it was actual value. I think the character development in this story sucks. I think it portrays everybody disingenuously. I think that it feels like this shallow version of every single character. I think Gordon doesn't act like him, and felt super undeveloped. Batman communicates like in these like cheesy lines. The whole thing feels really sort of like skin deep. And I also I just like while like I get bringing in Joker for the first book, but to remove him basically until Death of the Family, it just like doesn't make sense as like it completely disconnects itself from the larger like Batman mythos. And like, yeah, I think it succeeded in making a statement. Did it like define a like long-term direction? No, not at all. I think it felt like it got people's attention and is memorable, but I don't think that it did a good job resetting anything. I don't think it did a good job introducing people to this character or Batman in general. Yeah, I think it was a failure in my opinion. All right, next question comes from JK, who asks, what did you think of the art of Tony Daniel for this book? Considering my past rants about artists like Jim Lee, it'll be interesting to hear what I think about of an artist who came around the same time and has arguably that same house style. Ugh, fucking Jim Lee. I think that it definitely has that same thing. I don't like the art in this book. It is absolutely not a style that I really enjoy. I think that it doesn't match with this. It doesn't match the story I think they're trying to tell. I think from like a pure horror standpoint, it sort of does. But again, I think it makes it too action-y for me for this type of story. I don't think that matches up. I think he does know how to do dark and moody stuff, like, which makes sense for Gotham and Batman in general. I think that the doll maker and this like horror severed face thing is gross and like unsettling, but it is well done, I think, for sure. I think his action sequences are pretty fluid and cinematic, and capture Batman's like movement and energy really, really well. But I just didn't want it in this book. I think that ultimately, I think it's too polished and flashy for a book called Detective Comics, which, you know, is not really the high octane superhero visuals. I think his faces are overly angular and exaggerated, which is a 90s image comic thing that obviously Jim Lee created, and it drives me fucking nuts. I think that his mouths and stuff look ridiculous. While his environments too are like detailed, I think his storytelling is so stiff and cluttered, especially in the super dialogue heavy scenes, which there's a ton in this book. So like the hypermuscular thing, I fucking hate. The sharp facial features, I hate. This way too busy line work, I think, is so unnecessary. And I think so often artists use line work as an opportunity to show movement or to give depth rather than just making like using color and shade and like perspective and all this kind of stuff. It drives me fucking nuts. I think Daniel's art is definitely less sleek and clean than Lee's, which is a fucking wild thing to say. But at least his like shapes are stronger and make more sense. But yeah, like I really don't like this house style. I don't like this grittier horror take. It doesn't make sense to me for Detective Comics. Yeah, no, I don't like it at all. Next question from Post Almond Clarity, who asks, why was it called Faces of Death? Only one face gets cut off. That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they did it. I think like there's probably some like few meanings behind it, if I'm to guess it. It is definitely a bit misleading, but like I think partly is like obviously it's Joker's face, so you need to the most obvious thing in there is like referencing the fact that like his the most like infamous face when it comes to crime, at least in DC, is the Joker, and he gets that cut off. I think the doll maker's work in general, which is like I mean, he just stitches people together, but there is a lot of like reshaping faces and stuff that happens in this. So that's probably part of it. I think that the like introduction and review of faces of Gotham's like underworld is probably a part of that. Like getting the Penguin and like corrupt cops, and there are a lot of faces of Gotham when it comes to crime. So that's probably it. And I think obviously the real like the like trolley sort of like reference thing that they're doing in this, which is referencing the actual Faces of Death documentary, which is a real world thing from like 1978, which is known for like these fucking brutal stage depictions of death. It's awful. Don't look it up. I don't even know where you can find it these days. But I think, given Detective Comics like number one's emphasis on like gore and horror, this might sort of be a wink at that kind of imagery, I think. But it doesn't it doesn't fully deliver on faces of death. But I think if you're thinking about it from more of like a sort of like representative title for setting the tone and stuff, then it does that and sets you up for something gross and dark, which obviously it's referencing something that is. I think that's probably partly intentional. But yeah, if you're looking for like a face melting festival, it's like you're only getting one real major skin removal moment. Next question. From Fingers Grayson, who asks, did you enjoy Joker cutting his face off, or did it not do much for you? I mean, I think, I mean, of all of the things in this, I think the concept of like cutting a face off thing is, I think the visual is impactful. I think, does it need to be the Jokers? I think it couldn't be anybody else if you wanted them to like survive or whatever, but I didn't like it. I think that it was that it was cool, I guess, from like a sort of extreme standpoint. But yeah, no, I didn't really do anything for me. All right, next question. From Bisexual Lad, who asks, when Tony Daniel started drawing Batman in 2008, he depicted the character as much more slender with much longer ears. Do you prefer this approach or the chunkier look? I mean, yeah, I do like a chunky Superman, but yeah, I don't really love a super chunky Batman. I think like there is its place. Like I think the Affleck Batman is interesting, but I think for like when you think about, all right, well, let's get dorky about it. But like, if you think about like Bruce Wayne's training, Batman's skill set, like a big heavy guy isn't necessarily the most effective. Like, what's the name of that? There's like a bodybuilder guy, or not bodybuilder, but like a weightlifter guy who does like professional weightlifting. His name is like Anatoly or something like that. I see him on TikTok all the time where he pretends to be like a janitor inside like gyms, and he goes up to like big muscle dudes and like lifts weight in front of them after he like makes fun of them. Like that, and he's like a little skinny guy kind of looking, but I mean, he's obviously very, very muscular. I think that's probably what Batman, like if Batman was real kind of thing, like I don't think it would be a big chunky guy. Like it would have to for all of the things that like the Batman does and the way that he fights and the way that he like, it just feels like he wouldn't be a big old chunky boy, you know? Like he's probably not eating that much. He's probably very, very like hyper specific diet that he's on. Like all of that stuff leads to like not a big chunky guy, because like that it inhibits your movement, all this other stuff. Like I don't think Batman should be big. I think that I like Superman as that idea because he's a farm boy. He's like eating steak and eggs for breakfast and stuff. Like that makes sense to me. He's not like necessarily super nimble, like nor does he have to be. I think like Superman's all about his like abilities and his strength, not necessarily his like agility. So like it feels more like Batman should be skinny and Superman should be a chunky boy. But I think that I don't like the crazy angular thing, though. I don't mind the long ears. I would love to see that in live action once, because I do like the design sometimes, depending on who's doing it. There are some elements of this costume that I do like. I think like the boots are interesting. It feels more of like a boot with actual like ridges and stuff on the bottom, like more like almost like combat-y kind of boot. I do like that with Batman. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, I think I prefer probably a little bit of a thinner Batman personally. All right, next question. Step into the stump Chunkman Black, who asks, who in the DC universe do you think would watch Faces of Death? All right. So I mean, obviously the the baseline things like who would definitely watch it and enjoy it too much. Probably like your Jokers, your Victor Zsasz, your Professor Pigs, your Amanda Waller maybe is like not for like entertainment, but like more like research, analyzing like for like tactical or psychological reasons or whatever. I think Morbid Curiosity, you're getting John Constantine maybe. Harley performing like post sort of like pre or post Reformation. I don't know. I think she would probably call it a little try hard. It's a little try hard. The Scarecrow probably would as like study it for research as well. Lex wouldn't watch it, but maybe if somebody showed it to him, he would just like be like, this is ridiculous. Batman wouldn't watch it because he hates death. Superman would not watch it. I don't think Wonder Woman, none of the like key folks would watch it. I think Riddler might watch it from like a scientific standpoint. Lobo maybe would watch it because of like if it had like explosions or something in it. Booster and Beetle I think would watch it, but like they would do it as like a joke and then realize it's very not funny. Yeah, that's probably my answer. All right. Next question, which I think is the last question. All right. From Drago, the Black Rose, who asks, what the hell was Joker's plan by cutting off his own face? Like, in kayfabe, why would he do that? Oof. Yeah, it's a weird fucking move. Like, if we take away the fact that it's like a shock and awe kind of like dark reboot sort of thing. Yeah, the Joker's plan to have his own face cut off is definitely an extreme move, and probably one of the most extreme things he's ever done, or plans he's ever done, because he's not really a plan guy, right? Like, sort of like the whole thing with him is like chaos, right? So anarchy. So it's weird that he planned something like this. I do think there are some like reasonings for this, especially like later on in the series. I think we get a bit more, especially once we get sort of like the reveal of him later. I think it's partly about like rebirth and identity and proving some sort of twisted point to Batman. But let's talk about the actual in-universe motivation. So Joker obviously doesn't do anything like by accident or like randomly, like though he doesn't like plan things in depth. I think he always has a reason for doing things. And I think that there was like a symbolic like point of this, which is like partly is Joker as seeing himself as this like agent of chaos and stuff like that. I think killing himself and evolving himself is a way to sort of like have an effect, I think, on Gotham. I think, and in Death of the Family, when he finally comes back, he and his face is like strapped back on. I think he presents himself as like this new sort of pure, more terrifying version of himself, with like no limits now, because he's like willing. What if he's willing to do this himself? What is he willing to do to you? I think it's always in this, he's always got that like proving like that, like nothing matters sort of thing, that whole chaos piece. I think showing that like even his own identity is meaningless. And like even through the pain of it, like he oh God, what did he call the pain? He's like, fantastic, or he used some fucking made up, mixed up word or something like that to be like, oh, this is amazing, orgasmic. So pain is a joke to him too. I think that's a piece of it. I think partly he's just trying to fuck with Batman too. I think, like sending this message of like, he's like out of the game, but he'll be back. I do think that it also creates this sort of like psychological, like ticking time bomb. Like Batman knows he's going to come back, but has no idea how or when. I think during the story, he sort of like even sort of suggests he's just like, there's no way that killed him. But also tying, it connects itself to this sort of like death theme in New 52, like that eventually like the whole New 52 was in theory about stripping these characters down You give quarter the owls for Batman, 0 year for Gotham, Superman like lost his powers, etc. Like Joker kills himself theoretically, I think, or essentially. So yeah, I think that, but I mean, yes, logistically, it's fucking insane. Even by like comic book standards, like it is a bonkers decision. He like gets a guy to remove his face, and that pain literally wouldn't be bearable, but I guess maybe it is for him. And then he somehow survives. Like I think he doesn't come back for like a year. So. Like, where is he chilling for an entire year? Like, is he just that makes no sense. When he does return, he wears like his rotting, decomposed face like a mask stapled to his fucking head. If like that would infections, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, so was this a good plan? If his goal's to like terrify people, then mission fucking accomplished. But if he did it for any like real strategic reason, no, absolutely not. It's completely insane. It affected nothing. Again, like I said, it impacts nothing. At the end of the day, Joker cutting off his face is less about like I think a grand strategy is more of just like making a statement that like nothing matters and I'm the fucking Joker and I'm crazy and I can always come back worse than I was before. But yeah, it's dumb. It's bad and dumb, and I don't like it, and I get it why people don't like the New 52. So that's my take on this whole thing. I think I've gotten a little bit of a sense that you guys don't like it either, but like let me know what you think about this. What did you think about all my sort of thoughts on the art and story and whatnot, the characterizations of these characters and like Detective Comics versus Batman? I'm kind of curious what you more expertised people who read more DC than I do think. And maybe the Doctor will be back next week. Otherwise, I don't know. I guess I'll pull a book off my shelf at the office maybe over the next few days. And we'll get some questions for next week. If you want to send those questions, probably best join the Discord. The way that you do that is go on our patreon.com/editpoint and you get access to all this extra content and stuff that we put out every week. We're putting out at least an extra episode right now. There's a ton of like back episodes. We've now combined both feeds from the Ghostfacers podcast as well as Dr. DC. All the Patreon content for both of those is now all in one place. It's patreon.com/editpoint and all of that stuff on there. But you also this can get you access to the Discord, our Discord for DC Comics and Dr. DC and a bunch of other stuff. You can also get access to Angel Radio, which is the Ghostfacers subreddit, or not subreddit, fucking just Jesus Christ, Discord. See, I can't do this by myself. Yes, so that is the way to get access to that, and I'll probably take more questions from the Discord anyways because I'm lazy. I'll probably put out a call in the next few days, and I'll probably put out a call on Facebook and Instagram too, but that's it. So if you want more engagement, wait for the Doctor to come back. And I talked about Ghostfacers. Subscribe to that podcast if you like Supernatural, or if you like Supernatural shit. Like if you like the dark shit here, there's gruesome dark shit on Supernatural. I know it feels like if you've never watched that show that it's like just hot dudes and ghosts and shit, but it's actually way more than that. There's a lot of similarities between DC and Supernatural. So check that out. And tell me how great I am, because if you want to keep doing episodes alone, I need to know that I'm good. Tell me I'm good. Am I good? All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.